Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. Emotions ran high at a meeting in Etobicoke tonight as community members gathered to discuss the bike lanes along Bloor Street West. The lanes have been a point of contention since being installed last year. Many who live or work nearby say they aren't suitable for the area and aren't well used, while cycling advocates argue it will just take some time. Dale Manukduk has more.
The bike lanes on Bloor Street West in Etobicoke were installed last year, removing car lanes in favor of separated cycling infrastructure that runs east and west. It's been contentious ever since. The owner of this local Indian restaurant says it's costing him business.
Because customers tell me that this bike lane and everywhere like parking or no parking this area, big busy area, and customer come. That's why people not coming.
So one of the things we've been hearing from residents and business owners in the area is that the bike lanes aren't used that often. It's now 5:20 in the evening. It's the dead of rush hour. We're going to count how many bikes are actually passing by over the next 10 minutes. During that small window, we saw 4 cyclists traveling eastbound. At 6 p.m. heading westbound, it was a much different story as cycling advocates from all over the city gathered at High Park to fight for the bike lanes.
And in the case of Bloor West, it makes a lot of sense. It checks a lot of boxes. It's already connected to this stretch of Bloor. It connects to some infrastructure at Kipling, like at 6 points, and it already has Royal York as a major north-south route on it too. So again, we're confident that the numbers will continue to grow.
They made their way to a town hall where over 300 community members were in attendance.
You maybe not know the community as well as I do.
Including local MPP Christine Hogarth. Hogarth stood alongside Transportation Minister Prabmeet Sarkaria when he announced the province is taking over bike lane approvals across Ontario. Toronto has already spent $4.5 million on the project. Hogarth says the city should spend the money to remove them.
There's other roads on either side that they can put the bike lanes on. Just choose another road, just not on Bloor Street.
Inside the town hall, a clear divide. Laughs when city staff said travel times for motorists had only increased a few minutes. Cheers when they said cycling had increased 60% along that stretch of Bloor. Attendees had a chance to have their voices heard, including persons with disabilities.
With the new bike lane, we talk with all the parking spaces.
Local politicians had concerns about emergency response times.
A devastating impact on traffic flow with little upside benefits.
Your response times have been improving.
Of course, everyone wanted to know the answer to one question.
Would we consider moving the bike lanes? At this time, as the local representative, my objective is to continue to work towards improving this infrastructure, and the removal of the bike lanes is not something that I am interested in.
Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
After years of advocacy from the High Park community, a dangerous stretch of road could finally be seeing changes to make it safer. The redesign plan is laid out in a new report that will go before the city's infrastructure committee next week. Chris Clever has the details.
A notorious spot for speeders has made Parkside Drive a particularly dangerous stretch. In the past 10 years, the city says collisions here have caused at least 5 serious injuries and 3 deaths, including an elderly couple killed in 2021. Their deaths sparked an investigation from city staff to redesign the road. Now a new report outlines how Parkside could change.
The changes are all what we've been advocating for so long. All we've wanted is safety. And the street, as it's been designed, was not safe for pedestrians, not safe for cyclists, not safe for motorists. The 2 people that were killed in 2021 were both sitting in their car. So it's not safe for anyone.
Faraz Golizada with Safe Parkside says aside from fatalities, he documents crashes on the road that often go unreported. City staff say narrow sidewalks, no bike lanes, and excessive speeds are the main culprits. Over the past few years, some changes have already been made, including this temporary asphalt sidewalk, decreasing the speed limit from 50 kilometers down to 40, and installing permanent speed cameras.
Yeah, it's quite frustrating how they talk about how they've made it safe with this speed camera and this and that, and then meanwhile the residents on the street know it's really not doing anything.
The redesign includes new bus stops, intersection improvements like designated turning lanes, and the most contentious part, a 2-way cycle track on the west side that city staff estimates would increase travel times by 1 to 3 minutes during peak hours. Staff say slower speeds would improve safety, but that may fly in the face of proposed legislation. This week, the Ford government pitched a new law requiring municipalities get provincial approval for new bike lanes that take out a lane of traffic.
It's unacceptable that they're butting their nose into something like this and not letting municipalities take care of their own citizens and make sure everyone gets home alive.
The mayor is awaiting the details of the legislation before weighing in.
I do not support limiting city powers, and it's always better when we work together, and we can always improve things.
This cycle tracks is absolutely part of a safe parkside.
Local councillor Gord Perks, though, already sounds like he's gearing up for a fight.
We have been working as a community for years to make this street safer. I would be appalled if the Premier of Ontario decided that saving a couple of minutes in traffic time was more important than saving lives.
For people like Golizada who've been advocating for changes for years, he says the province better come with solutions and not just roadblocks.
If they don't want to put bike lanes for the safety of everyone on the street, then they better figure out how they're going to keep people alive, because we don't want to see any more people dying on the street.
Even if the redesign concept is approved at the Infrastructure and Environment Committee next Tuesday, he's frustrated the changes are still likely years away. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
Toronto has a new 10-year plan to improve its economy. Mayor Olivia Chow unveiling the plan today, which has some very broad goals, including creating jobs and helping small businesses. We have Municipal Affairs reporter Sean Jeffers with us to break it all down. And Sean, tell us about some of the challenges that the city is trying to address.
Well, Kelda, at a glance, this plan bites off a lot. It's trying to address, on top of the economic goals, some major problems that the city faces: homelessness, congestion, the affordability crisis, housing prices more generally. And the link between all of these issues for the mayor is pretty obvious. She's basically saying what we need to do here is address all these issues to ensure that the city's long-term economic outlook remains positive. Now, she's also trying to really boil it down and make it understandable for folks in terms of the impact on workers and people, she says, who are being pushed out of the city because they just can't afford to live here any longer. But we need those people, she says, to work jobs throughout the economy. So let's hear from the mayor about that plan and her comments on how it can help people and it really will address the economy.
So for economy that have affordable housing, you can see the rise of the middle class because of it. And because of that, they could live closer to where they work. Because we are hearing that people are moving out of the city because they can't work, they can't live near where they work.
And Sean, some lofty goals, a broad plan. What can the city achieve with such a long-term strategy?
Well, that is the frequent criticism of these plans, that they are vague, that they are too high level, and that there isn't enough on-the-ground action. But there are some elements in the plan that I think people want to watch for, some specific elements. A plan to create 10,000 jobs for youth, increase traffic in the port by 5%. That's a measure of success, they say. Increasing the attraction of big events to the city, like FIFA, for instance. So, really building out that strategy and negotiating another long-term fiscal deal with the province and the city, like the New Deal last November. So, Budget Chief Shelley Carroll, she talked about this, and she talked about the main pillars of this plan. Let's hear from Budget Chief Shelley Carroll about that those specific pillars.
It boils down to three main things, and I think they will make it clear that every Torontonian should be able to see themselves and their lives and their livelihoods in this plan. It boils down to this: strong main streets, quality jobs, and global competitiveness. That's really what this is all about.
And Sean, what is the early reaction to the city's plan from the business community?
Some early optimism, I would say, Kelda. So we spoke with John Kiro, who's the CEO of the Toronto Business Improvement Area Association. So this is the group who lead the BIAs in the city and really liaise with business. And he's saying that not only did they help gather feedback and put this plan together, that they're optimistic that the city's really dedicated to it. And he is, however, sounding a bit of caution. He's saying, look, what we don't need here are new taxes, new fees, more overhead overhead for businesses which are already still struggling to recover from the impacts of the pandemic. He says, it's no secret, a lot of people are really still struggling out there, small business owners. So he wants to really emphasize that for city decision makers as they approve this plan. So let's hear from John Cura right now about what he thinks are the keys to success here.
It is a great opportunity to leverage the entrepreneurs out there to do it. So the message from us is, give us the rules of engagement, that's what this report is, and get the hell out of the way and let us do what we do best.
Pretty blunt message there from John Cura. And he's really trying to say to those decision makers at City Council, look, you have set the ground rules here, you have this plan, but let small business thrive, let it grow, and don't overburden it with those fees and taxes. And he did point out the parking levy. He's going to be watching to see how Council does this. This is a new policy they're debating to raise revenue. So I should say this isn't a final policy. Council needs to approve this at a meeting next month, Kelda.
All right, thanks so much, Sean. Always a pleasure. Thanks for breaking that down for us.
Thanks.
Orchard Villa long-term care home, which had one of the highest death rates during the pandemic, is facing a court challenge from the Ontario Health Coalition, and it's being backed by a woman whose father died there. Ali Chiasson explains.
More than 70 people died at Pickering long-term care home, Orchard Villa. It had one of the highest death rates in that first wave of the pandemic. It was one of the homes the province sent soldiers to help with staffing and medical care.
The military was sent into the home. The military found conditions like bare mattresses without bed linens that residents were lying on, trays of rotting food piled up in residents' rooms, residents who were severely dehydrated and malnourished.
Orchard Villa is operated by Southbridge Care Homes. Just last year, the province issued a zoning order to accelerate plans to expand the facility run by Southbridge and renew its lease another 30 years.
The director in the ministry is not able to issue a new license to a long-term care owner who has a poor history of substandard care. Without question, Southbridge at Orchard Villa and in their other homes is in that category.
Tomorrow, the Ontario Health Coalition will argue for a judicial review of the Ford government's decision and to squash it. They're backed by Kathy Parks, whose father died at Orchard Villa.
I can't help but come back to, May of 2020 and watching our premier visibly upset in an interview saying that he will hold these homes accountable.
We can ensure there'll be accountability. There's going to be accountability.
At the time, myself and the other family members really held on to that as a branch of hope. And then here we are nearly 5 years later after all of these deaths. And instead of that, we have a 30-year license, 88 extra beds with the potential to over 800, zero accountability.
Long-term care minister Natalia Kusendova-Bashta was at the ribbon cutting of a new home in Kitchener. We asked her why the province thinks Southbridge at Orchard Villa deserves the lease extension, given its past.
Let me be very clear. The community in Durham and in Pickering is experiencing real capacity pressures. And as someone who has worked in the front lines and have cared for seniors and patients during the pandemic, and who have myself experienced patients dying in my care, I completely understand, the sadness and the trauma that is involved. Having said that, we have made many learnings from the pandemic, and we have evolved and we have innovated.
New builds can only have private or semi-private rooms. License extensions will only be granted if homes meet new, more rigorous standards. The court challenge could take months to reach a decision. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Some sad news in the entertainment world tonight. Singer Liam Payne, a former member of the British boy band One Direction, has died. According to police in Buenos Aires, Payne fell from the third floor of a hotel. The band became international superstars in 2010 after appearing on a British singing competition show, The X Factor. Payne then went on to have a solo career, as did most of his former band members. Reports say Payne was in Argentina to see his former band member Niall Horan perform. He was just 31 years old. And as we go to break, the Remembrance Day Poppy campaign is now underway. Governor General Mary Simon received the first one today in Ottawa.
To officially launch this year's National Poppy campaign, Mr. Lawrence will present the first symbolic poppy to the Governor General.
Poppies will be available to the public beginning October 25th. Millions of Canadians wear the red flowers leading up to Remembrance Day, honoring those who served in the armed forces. Welcome back. Metrolinx is shaking up its senior management team with news that it has let go of 2 of its members. A Metrolinx employee who CBC is not naming for fear of reprisal says staff received an email from CEO Phil Verster yesterday indicating that the Chief Planning Officer and the Chief Operating Officer of Rapid Transit Systems are no longer with the company. The changes come as GTA transit projects face delays and ballooning costs, including the Eglinton Crosstown, which is years behind schedule with no opening date. Electricity use in the province is expected to skyrocket over the next 25 years, growing by 75% by 2050. The projection is a 15% jump from a year ago and comes in the latest forecast by the province's electricity system operator. Queen's Park reporter Lorena Redekop has more.
Most people have heard about the surge in electricity expected with more electric vehicles, but there's also another area that's exploding: data centers that use artificial intelligence, expected to make up 4% of Ontario's energy demand by 2035.
Electrification is intensifying, technology is advancing, and the electricity grid is being relied on to power more and more each and every day.
The minister responsible says 16 new data centers are in the works in Ontario.
These data centers, especially when they're integrated with AI, they are very energy intensive.
He says doing an online search with AI uses 10 times the electricity as a basic Google search. Minister Lecce also got a tour of a car parts factory. Manufacturing, another area using more power with increased automation. This company in Mississauga wants to speed up one step that takes 7 seconds down to 2.
We're going to literally throw everything at this to keep the lights on and the bills low. We think affordability is our #1 priority, and we're confident that the plan we have is working. But today's forecast is sort of lighting a fire under all of us to do more.
As for those data centers, one expert says there are benefits to having them here.
Cloud computing or cloud storage that's going to be located in Canada, where we have control over our data as citizens. You know, you can imagine the large databases of the federal government, for example.
However, he says one drawback: not a lot of jobs created.
Jobs, yes, the jobs of the folks working there, the engineers and technicians, is going to be great. They're going to have great salaries, but the number of people is actually going to be quite limited.
In order to meet the demand, Minister Lecce says the province will be relying most on nuclear energy and is confident current plant refurbishments will be finished on time. But he also sees natural gas as part of the solution, along with hydroelectric power and renewables. The environmental group Environmental Defence says wind and solar power are the cheapest power sources and the best way forward. With expected electricity usage by 2050 up 15% in just a year, could it jump again?
That is an astronomical increase year over year, so it is very possible.
He says conservation will also be part of the plan. Lorena Redekop, CBC News, Mississauga.
The federal government is giving an update on its national action plan to combat auto theft.
Transport Canada will also play a key role in ensuring that new vehicles meet the most robust anti-theft and immobilization standards.
Anand says the government is encouraging manufacturers and industry leaders to use new technology to make vehicles more secure. The plan was developed following the National Summit on Combating Auto Theft in February and focuses on disrupting, dismantling, and prosecuting the organized crime groups involved in auto theft. Colette, last week we got the Northern Lights. This week, something else that's pretty spectacular will be appearing in the skies.
Yeah, for tonight, there's some excellent viewing in our skies with the supermoon coming your way. And just a quick little rundown of what that means in the sense of when we check out the orbit of the moon around the Earth. So the closer it is, when it gets to its closest point, that's what we call perigee. And when it's at its farthest point, we call that apogee. Well, we get perigee tonight. So what that means is we get the appearance of a supermoon, okay? It seems larger in the sky, brighter. In fact, this will actually be the brightest moon of 2024, and we call this one a hunter moon because it's the first full moon after the harvest moon. So the best viewing, might have seen it kind of last night, tomorrow night, but truly the best, brightest, and fullest would be tonight. And I do have the conditions in terms of clear skies. Now, it may be a little chilly, so you'll want to bundle up somewhat. We do have the frost advisory, first one for the city of Toronto, but it extends outward from there and picks up again in the Niagara region. Also back towards southwestern Ontario for our friends in Windsor, Chatham, Kent, Essex, through these regions. Any tender vegetation, you may want to be, trying to wrap that up or still protect it. Now, we've had the cooler air in place because of this deep trough in the jet stream, but that is finally going to be pushing off further east. As we get on the backside of this ridge of high pressure and we get more of a southerly flow, that's going to start to push our temperatures up. Now, it's just a little bit gradual tomorrow, but after that, we'll really feel the heat or the warmth starting to come in. Saturday, you see that ridge sliding off to the east. A cold front is going to try to come in, but actually, it's going to be a scenario where things just double down and that front gets pushed to the north and we get that warm air reinforced, in fact. So it's going to linger all the way, I would expect, to about Tuesday of next week. Along with that, we get the clearer skies at night. Yes, it'll be cool tonight, not as cool, but coolish tomorrow night. And then after that, it's not only that the daytime highs get warmer, we're going to be finding that our overnight lows get milder too. So by tomorrow, that southerly flow kicks in and starts to help us out. Overnight tonight, though, here's kind of a snapshot of what you can expect with some of those cooler temperatures. It will be a low of 1 for Toronto, 15 the high for tomorrow. It was just 10 days ago, we had a temperature of almost 25 degrees. Well, we're not quite getting there, but we're certainly going to see some 20s coming back in the very near future, Kelda.
Hey, that's close enough. Thanks so much, Colette.
You're welcome.
And that is our show for you tonight. Thanks for joining us. Have a great